Okay guys, we're gonna start with some back attacks, and there's gonna be a lot of detail, so feel free to rewind if you need it. We're gonna start with 2 hands on 1 collar instead of our traditional seatbelt. So I've got my seatbelt and I fish my collar out, and right away we're gonna start talking about details here. For any of these chokes, when Kyle's chin is down, I don't wanna pull the whole lapel across his face. Your gi is really thick at the collar, so instead what I wanna do is I wanna fold it inside out. So I use my underhook hand. That thumb is gonna roll it so that it's just the seam where it meets the rest of the weave for the gi top. So now that we're here, I've got 2 hands on 1, I start rolling it. If you don't get that first, that's okay. There will be a point for you to adjust and fold it again. From here, I know that Kyle wants to start escaping towards the underhook side, so we're likely not sitting up like this. We're probably back here, and he's probably defending his neck already. I want to make sure that he can't leave towards the underhook, so I'm going to take that side, I'm going to scoop it under him, and I'm going to start to drop him towards my overhook. I'm going to kick him free, and as he starts to put his back flat to the mat, I'm going to start feeding the collar down. So as he starts to escape over my hook, I start pulling this and turning my belly to the floor. Very important you don't jump up to your knees. Keep your hips flat. If I come up like this, Kyle can escape his hip and he can go flat to the floor, and I start to lose the position. Okay, come back. If I get my hips flat to the floor, when I'm down, my chest will be underneath his shoulder. So when I build my base up to my knees, and he starts escaping, from here, even if he tries to flatten out, I can use this to push him back to his side. Okay, that's very important. During that process, I'm going to begin to feed the collar and either fold it or start sliding this up. Now, if he's got 2 hands on my wrist, it's very unrealistic to think that I'm going to be able to pull my hand up against that. So what I need to do is relax my left hand's grip, and I need to focus on pulling the slack in his collar down, down, down. Okay? Now that we're here, I'm going to make a knee pillow with my left leg. So my left knee is going to go to the inside or just underneath my left elbow, and my left foot goes to his butt. So my knee is here, and my shin runs parallel with my foot and ankle roundabouts by his belt and his hip. Once I'm here, I'm going to step over his belly, heel to hip. The more space I leave out here, the easier it is for him to reclaim half guard without even having to touch my leg with his hand. So he can stay defending the choke and reclaim his guard. Heel to hip. Now that I'm here, I'm going to switch my bottom hand to his other collar. I'm going to open my left foot out towards his head, and I fall in towards my back pocket. This is where I'm going to throw my leg over his shoulder and cross my feet here. So this is our hammock. Again, always cognizant of the fact that I don't want my left elbow up so his head can escape. I want to keep it tight to my hip. I'm going to pull the bottom collar in my right hand down towards his feet. And now, can you move your hand real quick? My left hand, my knuckles are pointing up to the ceiling. I want to try to make them point towards you guys where the camera is. So I'm going to begin to roll that as I pull. Okay? A lot of these chokes from the back is very common, especially with the cross choke, for people to feel like they need to extend their arms away, and all that does is create space where his head can slip through. Instead, I want you to think about small wrist movements where you're going to turn like you're opening a jar. Okay, so I'll be pulling this collar down towards his feet, and this hand, I'll be just rotating my wrist across. We're putting pressure on 3 sides of his neck rather than extending and hoping that we only hit the front where his throat is. Okay, so again, we're inside here. I have a 2-on-1. If I don't fold the collar yet, that's okay. I can do it while he's escaping. I want to make him choose the overhook side, and as he's going, I'm bellying out and feeding the collar simultaneously. I don't need to give him 2 separate steps where all he has to worry about is one thing. So as he escapes, I turn belly down and I start feeding. I build my base and I drive him forward, knee pillow in. I step over, and again, this is where I can start to adjust. I switch my right hand to the bottom collar. My left foot opens up so I can sit on my right back pocket. I swing this over, trapping his arm. And now real quick for you guys, the detail on the choke. This is the same way that I apply my rear naked chokes, my short chokes, and even my guillotines. Triangles, all the same also. If you've ever watched any of my videos on those, I talk a lot about the way we choke or strangle people being like a black hole, where everything collapses in upon the center. So a lot of people with these collar chokes, they try to fight with strength, and they think that it's the same way as like an armbar or a kimura, where if I have this 10-second burst of power, I can dislocate a joint or I can break a bone. Chokes don't work the same way. It's got to be constant pressure the entire time and the same squeeze repeatedly. Any variation in that will either fatigue my arms or create too much slack and space, and then I'm basically resetting it because all the blood or oxygen has gone back into his body and his head. So what we want to make sure we're doing here is for the cross collar choke, I fold this across and I'm thumb in, forefingers over the top. My second hand is here. I'm going to pull this down straight towards the floor. Usually, since we're laying on our side, it will be towards his feet instead of towards the mat. And then again, I'm not trying to extend my arms away and lean to create pressure. What I'm thinking about doing is rotating my pointer knuckles straight at you guys here. That's where we want to apply the choke from. The same principle with like a rear naked choke. I always teach my students about opening our elbows away from each other so that the squeeze comes in at all sides. It's very important when you collar choke that you focus on the small wrist movement rather than big explosive shoulder or elbow pulls and pushes. It's going to pay dividends. That mechanic is in every single arm choke, rear naked choke, cross collar choke, kata hajime, or even the bow and arrow. It's all this small wrist movement. So please focus on that, and you should be getting these on everybody.